Good morning, chaps. Can I ask, who do you think's global warming policies are a more immediate threat to the existence of the planet? Scott Morrison's or Xi Jinping's? A simple question. Who do you think's a more dangerous person for the planet?
More dangerous person for the planet?
Yeah.
In what regard?
For the climate of the planet. Well, other things as well, but let's talk about climate.
Who's more dangerous for the climate of the planet?
Yes.
Well, I guess it depends. You're just talking about those two leaders.
That's the simple question. I thought I would keep it simple.
Right.
We could include Vladimir Putin, if you like.
And why do you think those two leaders?
Well, I think they are among the most serious threats to the planet. Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin.
Right. Well, yeah, China's certainly the biggest emitter in that.
Okay, but if insiders could spend a bit of time addressing the issue of China's contribution, and perhaps not as much Scott Morrison's role in this, I would appreciate it, and I suspect a lot of viewers would appreciate it as well.
Take that on board.
Good on you. Have a good one. I appreciate David and Sam being prepared to chat with me on their way to getting some coffee this morning. They don't know what I'm going to ask, and I think it's a reflection that they're prepared to undertake whatever risk might be involved. But I try to be reasonable in the questions that I ask, and I thought the question that I asked was a very reasonable question and an observation that our national broadcaster, the ABC, which is supposed to be balanced in its reporting of news and current affairs, appears to be of the view, the official ABC view, that Scott Morrison and other Liberal leaders are the absolute worst offenders when it comes to CO2 emissions and global warming in general. When the published figures demonstrate that China is emitting more CO2 than the rest of the developed world put together, and they were allowed, under the terms of the Paris Accord, to keep increasing their CO2 emissions for another decade after everyone else is supposed to start reducing. The idea that China escapes general and specific discussion in news and current affairs programs generally, and on the ABC in particular, that China escapes condemnation to the level that Scott Morrison gets is, in my opinion, offensive as an Australian taxpayer. But again, I appreciate David and Sam being prepared to entertain the idea of a discussion with a guy when they don't have any idea what I might ask them. Had any of the journos appeared this morning, and I'll look at the program to see whether anyone is in the studio, I would have liked to have inquired about the relative risk that has occurred as a result of the negligent decision by Tim Smith to drive his car last week versus what I believe were the negligent decisions by Daniel Andrews and his cabinet colleagues and a swag of public health officials in Victoria in their planning and implementation of the hotel quarantine security arrangements last year, which I believe led to the deaths of 750 Victorians. And as things stand now, the death toll in Victoria from COVID stands, I believe, at 1,168. which is almost double the toll in New South Wales. And Dan might argue, well, our current Delta variant spread was caused by the problems in New South Wales, but Melbourne and Victoria have had the strictest lockdowns, draconian lockdowns, of any major city in the world, and yet we've still got the highest death toll in Australia. So Tim Smith has already paid a substantial price for his decision to drive recently when he shouldn't have. But as far as I'm concerned, Daniel Andrews appears to be getting away with the deaths of 750 Victorians at least, that stemmed, in my opinion, from the hotel quarantine security fiasco. And Dan's getting away with it scot-free, hasn't missed a day's pay while all this has been going on, while tens of thousands of Victorian businesses have been either devastated or severely damaged. In my opinion, Dan ought to pay a price. When I heard that he'd been taken to hospital a few months ago, I was shocked, because I'd been hoping he'd be taken to jail. By the way, just a postscript, the campaign button that I'm wearing is something that I picked up in Washington DC in 1972. My wife and I were living in the suburbs of the Virginia suburbs of Washington at the time, and we were there for the McGovern-Nixon election, and of course Nixon won. McGovern was consigned to the dustbin of history, but the campaign button lives on. Bill Thompson for Outside Insiders.